about what business analysis is today, what was it in the past, what it's going to be in the future. I'm trying to understand that talking with experts from different places in the world. And today I receive a senior business analyst from Canada with extensive experience in leading and contributing to various projects across different platforms for a broad range of clients and industry. Welcome, Sharon Burke. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be here. I look forward to our discussion.
Sharon, I would like to start this discussion by meeting a little more about you. How did you end up doing business analysis? What's your story?
That's a great question. So I started back in, believe it or not, the 1980s at Acadia University, where I did a degree.
You were a child at the time, I see.
Very young. I entered the industry at 10. So Acadia University, I did a degree in computer science and mathematics. My last year of university was the first time local area networks were in any academic setting that I could lay hands on. So if that gives you a little bit of a sense of my age, hopefully, won't scare too many people away. So while I was at Acadia, I had the opportunity to participate in a co-op education program, which meant at certain points during my career, my college semestering, I could go out into the industry and work with industry partners for a semester and get credit for that through the university program. My last year, I joined an organization called DMR Consulting, which was actually a firm that started out of System House in Quebec back in the 1980s. As a co-op student. And while I was there as a co-op student doing development work, I was given a challenge of, if you can write this piece of code to spec with an acceptable level of quality in this time frame, we will give you a full-time job. So I worked for DMR from 1989 through to, for 13 years. When I moved over to Maritime Life, when I thought it would be interesting to see what it was like to work for one company and not only participate in the development of things, but reap the rewards of it as well. So be a member of the staff that, got the wins or the losses and the benefits or the gains from whatever changes were being implemented. So I went over to Maritime Life, and lo and behold, 6 months after I moved over to Maritime Life, merger with Manulife occurred. They broke off the IT division and they gave us to CGI, and I was back into the consulting world again. So I stayed with CGI until 2015 when I privately incorporated, and then I went after the type of work that I wanted to do. Then in December of 2022, a local recruiter put an offer in front of me and said, hey, if you're interested in coming back to salaried work, we're looking for a team lead that wants to build a team of BAs and grow and develop that team of BAs within an organization. Are you interested? And I went, hell yes. So I landed at the organization that I'm at now, and I've been there, like I said, since 2022.
And an interesting point in your journey is that you started working as a BA very much before BA was coined as a term, right? So I would say that you were doing some job that I don't know what was the name of it, but I believe it was very related to what we understand as business analysis today. So let me formulate a question for you. How do you define business analysis? You are now leading a team of business analysts, and I understand that they are doing a lot of things that you have done in the past, using different names, but now you have to tell them what to do. So how do you define it?
It comes down to adding value. So it's not just outcome based. It's the journey to get to that outcome. The business analysis is about relationships. It's about understanding current state. It's about bringing the right opportunities to the right audiences at the right times to facilitate the conversations that have to happen to progress the business, to add value to whatever the organization goals and objectives are. So I don't see it in a very purist sense. So if you were to pull the IIBA definition, it is very clinical. I see things as a little bit broader in that the BA is the facilitator and one of the best communicators that most organizations have. So our ability to not only provide pure BA traditional service delivery is there, but also to provide more. Oh gosh, I'm struggling with my words here, Fabrizio. It's communication, facilitation, key participant, key driver, champion is the word I'm looking for. So quite often BAs are champions of change and opportunity and problem solving within an organization without necessarily being in a pure BA role.
Okay. It's not just about your role, it's about the outcome that is
Yes.
being given for different stakeholders, the value you're delivering, and and that doesn't frame your work. It expands it.
It
It opens
does.
for different.
You know, because one of the other topics you had seated here was, you know, what BAs are hired for and what they traditionally end up doing. And we all know what that BA job definition looks like from a recruiter. You know, somebody that is able to elicit and validate requirements. Somebody that can work strategically in cross-functional environments and deliver positive outcomes that are traced back to benefits and things. It's words that have different meanings to different people based on their experiences. But what we end up doing is not the same grind each and every time. Each problem or opportunity the BA gets engaged with can go in so many different directions because we have such an ability, or we should, if we're good BAs, we have good analytic thinking abilities to be able to take ourselves from what the symptoms of things are that we're hearing down to actual root causes and get to a place where we can say, you know what? I hear what you're saying, but maybe if you look over here and you take advantage of this reference model, you're going to see that there's a capability gap within your organization. And if you filled that capability gap, all of these things could be enabled, or all of these opportunities could be potentially on the table for you. You know, so it's, and I go off topic here quickly, so please rein me in.
Don't worry, don't worry. I think this is interesting, and I have seen this conversation going around with different folks on our community that you bring some openness for the definition of business analyst as a role. So, and that openness means into different contexts you may play it different. You may act different. It's not a prescribed scripts that you're going to follow, because depending on the context you may run it completely different, and it brings a level of anxiety for a lot of people. I have seen some people like uncomfortable with that because this brings some ambiguity to the definition of the role.
It does.
And other people have been saying, oh, it gives us freedom to find what is important, and that's two different perspectives on, and they're both true, right? They're both true. So let's try to bring this to practical, specific scenarios.
Okay.
When you started working, you were already doing business analysis. What from that type of practice that you have done are still business analysis practice you see today? And what wasn't there and today is key for a good business analyst? Bring me those two different scenarios. What is common to everyone and what's specific today?
Well, I'll take you back into my work history again. When I was with DMR, one of the things that I was introduced to there was their in-house methodology. So they had built their own SDLC, or as we called it, the blue books, of how you approach systems and business analysis and strategic planning and project execution. And they had a whole series of manuals and I can't call them cookbooks, because the education around how we applied this framework was very, very specific, and it was a framework that if you followed the principles and the values and the methodology, the approach, you could generate positive outcomes. Because years and years of best practice research by professionals across the industry in different roles and in different levels of experience had contributed to this. And through that exercise of going from here to here and linking information, your information components to your functional components to your capabilities. You were learning how to triage and how to diagnose and how to dissect your organization so that you could represent it two-dimensionally, so that you could have discussions about where problems and where opportunities and where evolution could occur. Because at that time, we didn't have modeling tools that could give us some of the things that we can do now. With some of the enterprise architecture modeling tools and some of the, again, industry frameworks that are baked into them, you can do some very quick what if type analysis and present some very, very impressive, if you go down this path, here are the potential outcomes and benefits that you get, versus if you go this way, there's what your potential benefits and outcomes look like. And if you go through here, here's your risks and whatnot. We can do that with pushes of buttons now, where my upbringing was to do that with literally paper and pen, stickies, whiteboards. It was the good old days of having to build PowerPoint pictures on we use transparencies in some of the presentations that I went out to. Like you put proposals together in 3-ring binders where what you were going to do was articulated line by line in a prescribed format. So how we operate today is significantly different, and the capabilities that the BAs have are still the same. So the opportunity to take the capabilities that we have and spread them broader in the organization, the capacity is there now, because tools are giving us more cadence, more speed, more velocity, and freeing up capacity to do other things that used to have to be done through much slower and just slower methods.
And you mentioned the methods, how linear they were. So you had a sequence of
yes, it was very much waterfall
documentation to fulfill, and at the end you had this whole big document that says everything.
Yep.
We're in a different world today, especially I would not even say with the tools and Agile or artificial intelligence, but even Agile changed the way of doing stuff. Instead of doing very linear, we started to create small increments, and that changed a little bit the way we used to do analysis. Yeah. Do you agree with that?
We tried, is what I would say to that. Because what I've seen is there are an awful lot of people out there that are very, very well versed in the Agile methodology at a theoretical level. There are very few that are executing it well, because we fall into the old patterns. It's your IT team or your BA, PMO folks are usually the ones that have the literacy with the Agile methods. So it's, doing the backlogs and setting up the sprints and having the scrums and getting the commitments and doing the showcases. Like, those are words. If the actions are not understood by all of the players and how you're going to get benefit out of the outcome, you lose your audiences along the way. So when you're asking for support from senior leadership or the people that are holding the money that are going to enable you to do these things, if they don't understand your roadmap on how you're going to get from where you are to where they're going to start to see benefits, they're not going to come on the journey. They're not going to approve what you're trying to do. And we lose them in I hate to say this, in the techno babble, because we forget that stakeholder has a very, very different view of the world, and we're talking to them like they're a participant in a full-on Agile approach, and they're not in most cases, or at least in my experience, they haven't been.
And that's an interesting one. Agile was born to bring value incrementally, and it just became, for a lot of organizations, and a lot is a lot really, just methods, just recipe of how to do things, and very unconnected with the outcomes that you said was the most important things that nice.
This is one of my favorite books now. I use this to talk back at some of the folks that are saying, well, agile, and it's like, I get the principles, I understand the approach, but what we're really talking about here is outcomes, and how you describe the outcome to the appropriate stakeholder so that they buy into the journey that you're about to take them on. So that's that's the way I reframe my language, and I may not always do it verbatim, but it's a methodology is there to help you, to show you where experience and best practice has taken us to. If you follow these steps and you're not sure of where you're going, you will eventually get to something that is tangible. If you have an idea of what you need to get to, stating that outcome sooner rather than later and getting the buy-in to where you're going, you may be more successful in those iterative steps because the person is understanding and has confidence that this is the outcome that's going to get delivered. I don't need to see inside that black box. I have confidence in my team to give me that outcome because they have been delivering successfully on 3-week or 4-week sprints for whatever period of time. So I know when they tell me they're going to do something, it's going to be done.
Perfect. When you say about these target on outcomes, I like to call it this outcome-driven mindset that business analysts should have. What kind of competencies would a BA that you're hiring or you're developing in your team, because you're developing, I know a lot of BAs, would make a good BA? How do you expect a senior BA, or what competencies do you expect on a senior BA?
In a senior BA, that analytic thinking and the BA approaches should roll right off their tongue without even thinking about it. They should be able to drop into Moscow or Corbett or whatever framework or whatever technologies are in vogue at the moment. They should be able to roll with those punches with relative ease and communicate effectively. As far as communication, communication skills, communicate. I don't know how to say that any stronger than if you're interviewing with especially a senior BA that can't initiate or sustain a conversation, it's probably not somebody that has good and strong communication skills. Irregardless of the platform, I would suggest you BAs are always the most talkative in the room. And I know from current experiences that when they are planning events, they intentionally put BAs at each breakout or each table because they know as long as there is a BA sitting at the table, there will be conversation at the table. And somebody will be asking people to introduce each other, or somebody will be having a conversation about the weather or the building or the venue, the food, whatever, just to ensure that people are comfortable and that they're engaged. So it's communication and behavior skills are really top of line for me. Industry knowledge, not so much. Tools knowledge, these things can be taught. If you've got the right approach to the analytic thinking, you've got good behavior, you've got good communication skills, you've got the experience that shows you've been there and done that, you're capable of doing simple plans, you're capable of executing, following through on them, contributing to larger things, like, I'm good. The rest of it can be taught.
That's excellent. Would you say that a business analyst is born or is developed? In terms of those skills that you said, like communication, analytical thinking, you didn't use the word, but as you put those BAs into that specific situation, I would say leadership, because they're leading without authority. They're putting people, making them speak and making things happen. I like that. But is that a characteristic that is innate, or is something that can be developed?
I think they're born with the outgoing personality and the willingness to jump into the unknown. I think they can be developed. Somebody that has the interest and the ability to change behaviors and meter mannerisms, whatever psychological language you want to put on it. Again, people can learn skills. So I think they can be taught most things. Analytic thinking, it really depends. Again, there's a lot of psychology, there's a lot of different tactics and techniques that if somebody is a good tactician, they may be able to gather the input and generate a result. But is it the same as somebody that has a true intrinsic analytic thinking capability and just automatically breaks things down? Don't know. So
Okay.
I'm leaning a little bit more on their born, but
All right. Those are behavioral characteristics.
and that's
Okay.
as a mother and a grandmother. So
Uh, if you look to the future, and so
Mhm.
there are some changes happening, specifically with AI and new technologies that are coming. So this is changing everything for a lot of professionals.
Mhm.
How do you see that change impacts the business analysis world, our job?
It's like somebody took a snow globe and went, and they've put it back down now, and we have to figure out how to do what we do with all of the new capabilities that have now been thrown at us. Apologize for the crazy face there, but it really feels like just the proliferation of AI tools and the number of places that they are being plugged in. It's almost terrifying to understand what the risks are, let alone what the opportunities are. So it's for me, I'm kind of risk averse. I work a lot in financial services, so AI is something that is looked at through very with a lot of trepidation right now, because it's exposing things can have misunderstood or unintended consequences. AI is not perfect. I've spoken with other members of the community that have done some testing with it, and have intentionally put repetitive questions to it to see if it gives the same answer twice, and it doesn't. And I've used it myself to do some analysis and some summaries of documents, and I have intentionally asked it to come to conclusions. And when it couldn't provide evidence, it made the evidence up. So it was an interesting experimentation, but I've also used it very, very effectively to summarize large amounts of information to get the key points out. To take massive numbers of recordings of workshops where a lot of questions were asked and come up with, what are the top 10 issues that were discussed across these 15 workshops. I've used it to distill things to see if the way I've distilled it and the way AI would distill it would come out with the same. So it's still I'll stick my toe in and I'll see what happens, but I'm not sure I truly understand just just how big a change it's going to introduce for us.
And it's going to introduce a lot of changes in business, and we need some people taking
Hmm.
care of those risks, analyzing and identifying if that's the best solution or not for
Yep.
your organization, for their organization.
I mean, chatbots, those sound like wonderful little tools. Great way, but what's the risks with them? Especially and BASA, so business analyst, system analyst, I'll go back again to my roots. I came in through the systems side and kind of migrated to the business side. But a BASA used to be a standard role in the worlds that I worked in. So you could do systems analysis, or you could do business analysis, or you could do both of them. But if somebody needed to analyze the requirements for a new data center, well, off you go. If they needed to analyze, define all the NFRs for the security standards, off they go. Or go collect business requirements for a new software system for a new capability or a new product. Off you go. That BA, it could be the same person that was doing all of those different things. And what AI will hopefully help with is bring those frameworks forward so that BA that does want to go do all of those different things doesn't have to go off and spend 6 weeks tooling up on something before they can provide value to the next opportunity. They can understand how AI could give them a leg up, give them a framework, give them a set of templates, give them some tactics, some examples, whatever, that would allow them to hit the ground running faster and contribute quicker.
Very good, Sharon. Sharon, thank you very much for sharing your experience with us. Before ending this episode, if someone wants to reach you, chat, talk about your experience, or just chat because you're a lovely person, how should they reach you?
Best way to find me is through LinkedIn. I have a profile up on LinkedIn, and I do my best to respond to messages left there fairly quickly.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Everyone who joined us, thank you for joining. Other episodes are coming about the current state of business analysis and where we're going. Thank you very much for sharing your perspective, Sharon.
Thank you.